Thank you very much, ladies. Now we'll skip a few hours. But first, we want a little more information about our town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So, I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to come and sketch in a couple details on our past history here in Grover's Corners. Professor Willard? Ah, yes. May I introduce Professor Willard of our state university. Just a few brief notes, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners. Let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pliocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in the world. We're very proud of that here. Of course, there are some more recent outcroppings. Sandstone showing through a shelf of Devonian basalt, some vestiges of Mesozoic shale, but these are all comparatively new, perhaps 200 or 300 million years. Since some highly unique fossils have been found as well. I may say unique fossils, found 2 miles north of the Peckham farm, in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. These may be seen in the museum at the university at any time. That is, any reasonable time. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on...
Afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. You might give us a few notes on the history of man here.
Oh, anthropological data.
Yes.
Early Amerindian stock, Cotahatchee tribes. No evidence before the 10th century of this era, now entirely disappeared. Oh, possible traces of 3 families. Migration in the early part of the 17th century of English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock, since then some Slav and Mediterranean...
And the population, Professor.
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor.
The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, making the total 3,149. Birth mortality rates constant. By McPherson's gauge, 6.03.
Thank you very much, Professor. We're all very much obliged. Thank you, Professor.
Sir, not at all.
And now the political and social report. Editor Webb? Oh, Mr. Webb?
He'll be down in a moment. He just cut his hand while eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is publisher and editor of the Grover's Corners Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote at the age of 21, women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist. Religiously, we are 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. A little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller. But our young people here seem to like it well enough. 90% of them graduating high school settle down right here to live, even after they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to ask Editor Webb a question about our town?
Is there much drinking in this town?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you'd consider much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet down in Ellery Greeno's stable and holler some. We've got 1 or 2 town drunks, but they're always having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the household here. Except in the medicine chest. Right good thing for snake bite, you know. Always was.
Is there no one in town aware
Come forward, will you? Where we can all hear you.
Is there no one in town aware of the social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, yes, everybody is. Something terrible. Seems like they spend most of their time worrying about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do anything about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're hunting like everybody else for a way that the diligent and sensible can rise to the top and lazy and quarrelsome sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those who can't help themselves. And those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Webb?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Not in the sense that you mean. Come to think of it, there are some girls that play piano over at high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, there isn't much culture. But maybe this is a good place to tell you that we have a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountain in the morning. And we all notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them. And we watch the change of the seasons. Yes, everyone knows about them. But those other things, you're right, ma'am. There isn't much. Robinson Crusoe and the Bible, and Handel's Largo, we all know that. And Whistler's Mother. But those are just about as far as we go.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we'll get back to Grover's Corners. It's 2 o'clock. All 2,642 have had their lunches, and all the dishes have been washed. The children have gone back to school, and there's a buzzing and a humming from the school buildings. Only a few buggies on Main Street now, horses dozing at the hitching posts. There's a sort of afternoon calm about the town. You all remember what it's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office, tapping people on the knee and making them say, ah. There's Mr. Webb cutting his lawn. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower.
I can't, Lois. I gotta go home and help my mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Oh, Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, I've never gotten a kiss from such a great lady before.
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Forrest. Go out and play in the fields, young man. You've got no business playing ball on Main Street.
I'm awfully sorry, Mrs. Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran